Hi, my name is Heather, and today I'm going to show you how to create your cover for your children's book in Photoshop for Amazon KDP. The first thing you're going to want to do when you're ready to create your cover is calculate the size that you want for your cover so that when you create your artwork, it could be the right size. So for calculating, it looks kind of complicated, but it's actually pretty easy. First, you can go to the Kindle help page for create a paperback cover, and you'll want to scroll down to this part right here about the spine measurement. That's the first thing you'll want to do is calculate your spine measurement. If you go down to spine measurements for color books, you'll see right here it's just the page count times this number here. So first you'll want to calculate your spine measurement. My book is 32 pages, and remember the pages isn't like the number of pieces of paper, it's actually the pages. So if you were to number the pages in your book. Mine is 32 pages, so I'll do 32 times 0.00237. And the answer is 0.075104. So this is the width of my spine. Basically, I'm just going to add that to the width of the back cover, the front cover, and the bleed. So I'm just going to add on the bleed for the back cover plus the bleed for the front cover, and this is the same for every book, it's just 0.125 for the bleed for the back cover and the bleed for the front cover, and then plus the width of the back cover and the width of the front cover. So mine are 8.25 because that's the width of my book, so plus 8.25 twice for the back and the front. And if your book is a different size, you'll just put in the size for that. Then we will press equals, and this is going to be the width of the cover, 16.825104, but you could just do 16.825. Then for the height, that's actually going to be the exact same as your pages, so that's super easy. It's just going to be the top bleed 0.125 plus the bottom bleed 0.125 plus the height of the book. Mine is 8.25, and that is 8.5 for the height of the cover. So our final dimensions for the cover are 16.825 wide by 8.5 high. If you want to create your artwork for the cover digitally, like in Procreate or something similar, then you just take those numbers and you multiply them times 300, since they need to be 300 dpi, and then that will be your pixel dimensions for the cover. So in other words, we would take the width, which is 16.825, multiply it by 300, and you would want your width in pixels to be 5048, so you can just round this up, and then the height would be 8.5 times 300, 2550 pixels high. That will be the dimensions of your digital art. Alternatively, you can create your art traditionally and then just scan it in, and you will need to do a little bit of resizing to kind of get it to fit. But you can do that once you've created your Photoshop file for the cover, then you can just drop your art in and resize it as needed. The next step will be to go to Photoshop and create a new file. And then we're going to want it to be the dimensions that we had calculated. So let's change this to inches, and then we want the width to be 16.825. And then the height is going to be 8.5. And then for the resolution, we want 300 dpi. We'll make it CMYK and create. And then you can do Command minus and plus to zoom in and out in Photoshop, and then use the space bar to move around. And this is going to be our file for the cover. We can first add our guides. If you don't see these rulers here, then you can do Command R to hide and show. And then if it's not in inches, you can always go to Photoshop, Preferences, Units and Rulers, and just change that. We need to add our guides to show the 1/8 of an inch bleed so that we don't make anything go past that. So this is 1/4 of an inch, we just go back a little, 1/8 of an inch. So one little mark right there is 1/8 of an inch. So we can just drag each one. And then we also just want some guides to show where the spine is. This one's a little trickier, so we're gonna do View, New Guide, and make sure it's a vertical guide because you want it to be going up and down. And the position where we want it to be is going to be the width of the bleed plus the width of the page. My page is 8.25, so we're going to do 8.25 plus 0.125 the bleed, which remember the bleed's going to be the same for everyone. So the result would be 8.375. And then the next guide is just going to be that plus the width of the spine. So that's going to be 8.45. So we'll do View, New Guide, 8.45. And it's pretty skinny, but that is the spine width. Now that we have that all set up, we can do View, Lock Guides, and that just helps so that you won't accidentally move the guides around. And now let's go ahead and drop the art in. So I have this open right here, and I'm just going to do Select All, Copy, and go over here and do Paste. This is actually a scene from my book, so you can always just reuse a scene from your book for the cover. And I guess I made this just a teeny bit too small because you can see the white edge here, but I'll just show you how to fix that. So you can just do Command T or Control T on Windows, hold down Shift so you can straighten the proportions, and you can just make it a teeny bit bigger. But you don't want to do this and make it a lot bigger because it's going to end up blurry, but since it was like a few pixels, it's not really going to matter. And now we can start adding the text. Press the letter T on your keyboard to bring up the text tool, or you can also find the T on your toolbar, and then just click wherever you want text and give your book a name. So I'll do Mouse's Great Discovery and press the check mark. If you want to do curved text, we have this curved text tool up here, and we can pick the arc, and you can change the amount of the curve there. We can make it bigger up here, and then you can move it. You have to go over here and click the arrow tool, or you can press V on your keyboard. V as in Victor. And then you can just move it. You can also go over to your Properties panel. If you don't see it, go to Window, Properties, and you can change all kinds of stuff here. So you can change the width between the letters. You can change the color of the text. We can make it like a dark green if we want. You can change whether it's left aligned, center, or right aligned. And of course the font. So we could pick a different font here if we wanted. And then here's the size. Just mess around with those and get everything how you want it. You can also add the author and illustrator information on the bottom. So we'll just press T again and click, and then you can do like Art and Words by Heather Cash, or if you have multiple people working on it, you could do something like Story by Joe Schmo art by Heather Cash. So I pressed enter and then it went to the next line. Press the check mark and then we can change the space between the lines here. You could do auto, or you can also just put it to whatever you want it to be. And then we can make the text smaller too. If you want it to be like here, but you have all of these flowers in the background so it makes it hard to read, then I have a little trick for that. I like to put a border around the text that's the same color as the background. So if we go to the layers panel and double click on the right side of the layer right here, we're going to do stroke, and for the color, match it to the color that's the background, something like that, or we could go a little darker if we want it to kind of look like a shadow, but you want it to kind of be pretty subtle, not super obvious, so something kind of like that. And then see how it stands out a lot better. You could even make it bigger if you wanted to, so when you're adding the stroke you can change the size of it, something like that, so that like really covers all that stuff up. After you're done with the front, then you can go ahead and start the back, which will be the left side here. You can do the same thing, just press T and then you can click where you want to type and you can just type some kind of text out. And of course you can change the text and the size just like before. And then if there's a part where you want to put text but it's kind of a busy background, you can also add a square that is either solid or kind of transparent. So I'll show you how to do that. But in case you're not familiar with Photoshop, try to get familiar with the layers panel right here where it says layers, or you can also go to window layers if it's not showing. This is all of the elements that are in your file. So like this is the image we dropped in, this is the title of the book, story by, and then the text I just typed out. This is going to be very important for when you're like moving stuff around or putting things on top of other things. So in order to make your transparent box, you can go over here to the shapes and click the rectangle tool. You could also press the letter U on your keyboard. And then you have a fill color and a stroke. I usually like the stroke to just be 0 and not have a stroke, which means like a border around it. But for your design, maybe you do want it. And if so, then you can make it big and you can change the color here. But you can also do that after you're done creating it, so you can see what it's going to look like. So I have my fill it white, and then I'm just going to make a box here. And even though I have the stroke set at 0, it still looks like this while it's selected. But if I go to my layers panel and click on something else, then you can see it goes away. So that can be a little confusing, but just keep that in mind. So if I go and click on my rectangle, I could go to properties and then I can change the fill color to any other color. I can go here and make it whatever I want. And then if I do want a stroke, I can make this bigger like that. So however big you want it. I'm going to change this back to white though. And I'm going to change this back to 0. The other thing is that you can make it kind of transparent, which I like. So if you go to the layers and this right here, opacity, you just have to make sure your rectangle is selected. So see, these are selected when they're gray. So if I click on the rectangle and it's selected, then I can take my opacity and turn it down. And then see, it's like a little transparent box. And if you want to also resize it, if you click on it, you'll see these little handles here. If you don't see them there, you can also do Command T for transform, and then you can just change it that way too. Now we can add our text, and you want the text to be above the rectangle. So let's click on the rectangle so it's selected, and then press T for the text tool. Don't click in the rectangle though, because it's going to do some weird like text on a shape, because you can see how my cursor looks weird. So let's like click out here we'll make a paragraph text, which means you click and drag so you get a square box. And then we can just type our text in here. And once I'm done with that, then I can go to the properties panel and just format it however I want. And another thing is you have this dash here if it's continuing a word. Well, you can disable that by going to paragraph and click these 3 dots and then uncheck the hyphenate. And then let's make it left aligned. And then I'm going to click on the arrow tool and then I can move it up to here. And then I'll change my letter spacing. And then if I want to change the size of the text box, see it cut it off, I can press T again and then just click inside the text box. Make it bigger. Now let's just add a little about the artist thing on the bottom, or you could have about the author, whichever one works for you. So first you can bring in an image. So I'm going to grab my picture of myself and I'm just going to do select all, copy, and then let's look at our layers palette, see where we are there, and then we do edit, paste. And then I can do Command T to size it down, and remember to hold down Shift so you can strain the proportions. And then I like to put a little border around it so it kind of looks like a photo. So to do that, you can double click on the right side of the layer and click stroke, and then I'm going to pick white, and then see how it's like rounded around the outside. For the position, I can put inside, and then that makes it more square because the stroke is actually on the inside of the picture. And then we can make it bigger, so see, it kind of looks like a photo. And then we can also even put like a little drop shadow on it. So I can make it, maybe I'll make it like a dark green because I kind of like it to go with the background so it looks more natural. And then you can mess around with these things here, like the distance, the spread, and then the size. And then I'll click OK when I like it. And then you can have a little box that has like some text about the person. One thing you want to keep in mind is that the barcode is going to get dropped right here in the lower right corner. So just make sure you leave that part empty. So I'm going to make another rectangle, and this one, maybe I'll make it like a pretty blue color. And I really like to have elements overlapping each other, so something kind of like that. This is where the layers palette comes in handy because you want to be able to like drag this underneath, and then that way this is behind the photo. I want to put the same drop shadow on the rectangle as I have on my photo, so I'm going to right click on the layer of my photo and do copy layer style. And then I can go to my blue rectangle and paste layer style. It also copied the border though. Let's take that out because actually I only want the drop shadow. So if I expand it, then we have stroke and drop shadow. So let's take the stroke and throw it in the little trash can. And now I will add some more text here. So I'm going to make a little rectangle. And now this is pretty much done. So when I upload it to KDP, I might see that maybe I want more room here for the barcode or something, and then I can just come back here and kind of like move stuff around and then re-upload it and just make sure it looks okay. So this is kind of the first step, but I usually end up making changes after I upload it and then just like re-uploading it and checking it. But it's pretty much done at this point, and you can upload it and see how it looks. So I'm going to do File, Save, and first I want to save this as an actual Photoshop file. So I'm going to do book cover.psd, so make sure you have Photoshop selected. And then we want to save it as a PDF to bring into KDP. So we'll do File, Save As, Save a Copy, and we'll pick PDF. And we can just have this be bookcover.pdf. And we actually don't need the layers in it, so we can uncheck that and save. And let's uncheck the preserve Photoshop editing capabilities because we don't need that either, and save PDF. And then we're done. So now this is ready to bring into Amazon KDP, and stay tuned for my next video where we will take everything that we've done and bring it into KDP and create our book. If you have any questions, let me know in the comments, or you can email me at heather@heathercash.com. Thanks for watching. Bye.